Hey class, welcome. This video is going to be about an overview of the life of a star. We're starting a new section, what's going to happen to the sun and other low mass stars similar to it. We're going to be looking at sections from chapter 21 and 22 of your OpenStax Astronomy textbook. Okay, so this is pieces and parts of, and I don't really like red, that's the default, of section 21.1, not the whole section, just little pieces of it. I want to start by giving you an overview. Okay, an overview of the life of a star. So we've talked about the sun, we've talked about spectral types of stars, and now we kind of want to get the big picture as we move into talking about how stars change with time or how they evolve. So let's start very briefly with how stars form. Stars form when gravity really drives it all. Gravity causes these clouds. They're sort of like clouds we see around Earth, but they're a little different. They're clouds of hydrogen, mostly, and a few other things, gas, to collapse. Where do we find these clouds? We find them in between the stars, and that's sort of a story for another day. If you've taken Astronomy 101, you've heard that big part of the story. For this class, I just want to give you an overview so that you have some idea of what's going on. If you look at the picture here, we're sort of at these first stages as we have these big clouds of hydrogen between the stars. Gravity causes them to collapse, and eventually through this cycle, we're skipping lots of steps, you get to something like our sun, a star. And this is really what we've been talking about since the class began. And we remind ourselves that when a star is a star, it makes energy. So stars make energy by burning hydrogen. Okay? And we've learned a little bit about hydrogen fusion. And more recently, we've talked about the HR diagram, and we said a star is on the main sequence of the HR diagram when it's fusing hydrogen. Okay? That's the main lifetime of a star, and we're going to get into details of that. But when a star is making energy by hydrogen fusion, it's a main sequence star. That's the main part of its life. But we're going to get into what happens after that. So this is big picture here. We're going to get lots more details. Big picture, a star like our sun, eventually it's going to run low on hydrogen, and that fuel source is going to change. So eventually, fusion fuel source changes. It's not going to be hydrogen anymore. And what that causes is radical changes in the star, that you get changes in the physical properties of the star. So this fuel source changes the properties of the star. What kind of properties? Luminosity, temperature, size, all kinds of things will happen, and we'll get into details. Eventually, there's not going to be any fusion anymore. So first, the source, the fusion is not going to be hydrogen anymore, and then fusion is going to completely stop when the star runs out of fuel in the core. Oopsie, sorry, hello. Out of fuel in the core. Remember, fusion only happens in the core of the star. So you can have lots of hydrogen in the rest of the star, but if you run out of hydrogen in the core, your fuel source is going to change. And if you run out of that secondary fuel, fusion is going to stop. Okay? All right, one more piece of this overview here. This is where we're going. This looks like a big crazy picture with lots going on. By the end of this section of the class, you'll understand these cycles, okay? But big picture here in our overview, a star's life depends on, and by life I mean what part of this diagram is it going to be on? What cycle is it going to be? Is it a sun-like star, or is it a massive star? What's going to happen to it when it dies? All of that depends on its mass, when it was first formed. Did it form as a low mass or a high mass star? And these changes in fuel that I've been just talking about. So watch for that as we move forward. How is the fuel changing, and how does that affect the properties of the star? Okay, that's it for the overview video number 1. Next, we're going to talk about the differences between low mass and high mass stars.